Hello, today is November 22nd. We're doing business and social stories for Hump Day, right before Thanksgiving if you're in the US.
Thanksgiving Eve.
There really wasn't a lot of business this week, except for there's some news out of Supercomputer and some other AI events, so that's interesting.
Yeah, it was weird this week. Not a lot going on, but
Well, everybody's preparing for holiday on our side.
I guess so. And Microsoft is announcing some stuff, but it's not really consumer grade stuff. But hey, the world is going in this direction. It's good to have, I guess.
Microsoft is finally making custom chips, and they're all about AI. Maya, M-A-I-A, and Maya and the Cobalt 100 series chips, they're custom silicon designed for Microsoft to do inferencing in the cloud because they probably are going to cost less than anything anybody else has.
A Maya is an angelic spirit. Gandalf is a Maya.
It is
It's not
funny.
spelled like that, is it?
It is.
With an I?
Mm-hmm.
That's just Tolkien version,
Yeah.
not like the Mayan civilization.
Mayan civilization is spelled M-A-Y-A.
Right.
Yeah. And the way that was spelled was like the way Tolkien spells it.
That's what I was pointing out.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought you were saying the other way around. I was like, huh? Never mind. Just I'll be quiet.
This lore confusion moment.
It turns out
Senior moment.
you can only make so much money on silicon that does linear algebra. If all it's doing is linear algebra, the big companies will be tempted to just make their own lightning in a rock to do that.
And if you're going to have a global shortage,
Yeah.
it makes sense. I think Apple's like, oh, yeah, we'll just do it ourselves. And everybody's like, wait, we can do that?
This is what I meant when I said that it is not in NVIDIA's best interest to be selling $40,000 GPUs, because at that price point, there is a very strong incentive to dislodge NVIDIA's hold on the market, more so than at $10,000.
Well, this item doesn't cost $10,000 yet, but give it time. Inflation might get us there. And we actually don't know what the price point will be, but I imagine this will add quite a bit to the model that gets it.
iPad Pro OLED panels rumored to start production in 2024. So you can have an OLED iPad Pro. OLED technologies have gotten thin enough and power sippy enough and with enough longevity that Apple is buying in. Or Apple has decided you're going to get a new iPad every couple of years anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Still running mine. Going strong. I was looking at some of the stuff on mine. I think I got mine in either like late 2018 or 2019. Still going. I will not replace it until it dies.
I think we have an iPad Air 2 for the office, and it stopped. It didn't get the latest iOS update. Mm-hmm. It's just like, oh, Apple, come on. It still runs fine.
This one will get a bigger screen, an M3, and possibly OLED. So it'll be the nicest one to get. The nicest external drive to get was definitely not SanDisk. That was a poor choice, and now they have failed at such a rate that we're trying to figure out exactly why.
SanDisk Extreme Pro failures result from design and manufacturing flaws, says data recovery firm. Tom's got an interesting article here from a data recovery place that says that basically the problem is they're just poorly made. It's not the chips. It's that they've crammed everything in so close together that it heats up and it cools down and it breaks the solder joints, and that's why it stops working.
The answer is they're just like that.
Yeah.
Well, they also said the components were too large. I wonder if that has anything to do with the chip shortage.
Maybe.
Because they were probably manufactured around that time, right? SanDisk has responded and said, no.
Just one word.
Stop that. But they also pointed out that new versions of the SanDisk Extreme, they're using glue. So like they epoxy everything to try to keep it from moving around.
Well, the most embarrassing tech fumble of the week has to come from ASUS, who is actually going. I mean, this is a very high-end motherboard.
I want one of the messed up ones. It's a collector's item.
And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with it, but they are going to let you return it just because of this one little thing.
Videocards.com has a write-up on it. And ASUS will replace the misprinted Evange-N-lion motherboards. I really like the pronunciation of Evange-N-lion. I want one of the Evange-N-lion motherboards. That would be amazing.
That's the name of an anime, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I don't know. But I recognize it as an anime.
It's like one of the giant robot animes, right?
I don't know. I've just seen the name.
Engagement challenge.
Oh, you didn't even have to ask that.
Yeah, there's people with anime profile pictures ready.
Was that just stealth engagement? Because there's always so much engagement whenever we bait people into doing things.
Listen here, chat. Ryan has never seen it. Well, you said you've seen. We were talking about Studio Ghibli movies the other day.
I've not watched them all the way through. No, I'm aware of them.
But you've never seen one, right?
I think I sat down
Miyazaki.
one time and tried to watch one of them, and I was out within 30
You
minutes.
didn't like the whimsical.
Nothing happens.
It's beautiful. Just enjoy the experience.
It's not for me.
Tell him he's wrong, chat.
But you know what? We got a lot of engagement from Avatar.
Oh, yeah.
Because I called it anime, and people were like, "Oh, it's not from Japan."
It's actually an American studio. It was made by Nickelodeon.
Okay.
So
Listen, we all have things that we're kind of snobby about. That's fine. We're all passionate here. We're all nerdy.
well, Wendell is nerdy and passionate about AMD. Some would go so far as to call him a shill.
Aw.
So this is good news for him.
AMD gains CPU market share in desktops, laptops, and servers thanks to 4th gen EPYC and Ryzen 7000 series processors. I'm just happy that, it's like, look at all the people, they put the lightning into the rock and it runs so good.
Competition is good.
Yeah.
You can't argue with that. And competition is hot among the supercomputer world. And AMD, once again, number one.
AMD-powered Frontier remains the fastest supercomputer in the world. Intel-powered Aurora takes second with a half-scale result. So Aurora is not quite out yet. They're not quite done deploying it. And the power usage didn't look super good, but the power usage included like the full storage and networking component, but did not include the full compute unit. So it's not going to be a doubling in power, but it's probably going to be somewhere between plus 25% and plus 75% more power.
Now, NVIDIA does have those $40,000 GPUs, and maybe they're recognizing what you're talking about, which is if they want to supply the world, they're going to have to overcome this whole, like, we want to make our own chips thing. One of the ways they might do that is giving you a full suite of services when it comes to making your own language model.
NVIDIA introduces Generative AI Foundry service on Microsoft Azure for enterprises and startups. So basically, you get it in the cloud.
And they let you set up your own. They train it. They create it. They deliver it to you.
The problem is that we're going to end up with so few companies making the highest end hardware that can do these things that all of these companies can collectively decide that it is in their best interests to not sell this hardware to end users. And then you will only have access to this in the cloud. Like all of the economic forces would compel that situation, would they not?
And because of the awfulness that is the human mind, people will be as fiercely loyal to their language model as they are to their iPhone.
Yeah.
And it'll be like Cyberpunk.
It's like, oh, I see that your AI assistant has the green bubble.
Or no, it'll be like certain slang that is made up by the different AI model. That'd be interesting.
Well, in that dark future, we might get around differently, and New York wants to be at the forefront.
Joby and Volocopter fly electric air taxis over New York City. It's looking like air taxis might actually beat driverless cabs.
Volo, like the guy who took your eye in
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate.
I don't think these were driverless, were they?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet. But these can be more, it's much more likely that these can be driverless versus,
Just the takeoff and landing.
yeah. But
That's
it's also
the
foreshadowing for another story that we've got later.
Well, the question is, how did China still manage? Huawei got around the sanctions. They're doing great. China is not suffering the way that we would expect them to because we didn't give them chips. And maybe one strategy, of course, was to cheat and get them from somebody else or just check the box that says, I promise to use this correctly. Another way is good old-fashioned prepping.
Tencent says that it has an Nvidia AI chip stockpile, but it is seeking to buy domestic. And Chinese companies are producing newer revisions of their AI hardware, which is looking more and more promising. So that's also not good news for Nvidia. That's not good news for a market that can absorb a $40,000 H100.
They expect they have 3 more generations of their AI worth of NVIDIA cards left. I'm not sure what that amounts to in actual numbers.
Well, the force that no one ever talks about with these is that there's so much development happening on these models that they are getting to where they will run better on less hardware. So you really only need the amazing hardware for just a fraction of time, and then you figure it out. And it's like, oh, we can run this on int 4, and then before you know it, you can run and train some of these models on much less hardware than the initial stuff once you sort of have the breakthrough and figure it out.
OpenAI can't. I actually didn't include a story about that.
Yeah, where they're just like, oh, we're not going to.
Oh, maybe I did. I don't think.
I think you did.
Did I?
I remember reading it, but I don't remember if I read it
So
in
that's the problem,
the
right?
rotation or if
Yeah. Well, Sam Altman had some things to say. That's
Tune in on Friday.
we don't remember because we read a lot of stories.
But you could say that Nvidia is trying to maybe reinvent itself. They've gone from a gaming company to an AI company in a very short amount of time. And another company that sees the writing on the wall is also transitioning.
ExxonMobil is a lithium company now. And that is a smart move. If you look at lithium, the price of lithium since the 1990s, oh boy.
Take your ill-gotten gains and transition into the new thing. And we learn more and more about Google and their court case, their anti-monopolist court case, and just the sheer amount of money they've been spreading around all these years.
Google paid $8 billion to make its apps the default on Samsung phones. Well, isn't Samsung like number 1 or 2 for Android phones? So
all that bloat. You always ask yourself, why do they put these stupid apps on here that I don't want? Why are you installing, with every software update, do I get a new Royal Clash game? That's why. $8 billion.
Look, if you just play the crack, you will become addicted to the crack.
I promise it's good crack. Highest quality, purity. Well, Twitter bringing about the community notes really revolutionized propaganda on Twitter. It's something that I think people in power really, really dislike, which is bad news for them.
Google is going to let you annotate search results. As part of a new opt-in experiment, users will be able to add notes to links they see in search. Right now, these are just for you, not like the Twitter community notes, but maybe at some point in the future, they could be for others.
I feel like half of them I've just put, this is AI generated.
Do not show me this ever again.
Nonsense that doesn't make any sense or...
Don't recommend website. And DMCA has been abused almost, you could say, one of the most abused laws we've ever had, right?
I had very different takeaways from this article.
It's really, really ridiculous that they are allowed to completely automate it. And you could call what they're doing criminal, but we don't because it's the government. But if anybody else does it...
Google sues men who weaponize DMCA notices to crush competitions. So
That's our business. What are you doing?
2 people issued a prolific number of DMCA notices and disrupted a lot of competing companies. And this is all that Google could come up with after years of abuse, which tells you how weighted against you the DMCA is. If you're an individual artist or creator and you're trying to use this to protect your own stuff, it ain't happening. If you're Disney, it's great. But if you're not Disney, it's just awful.
So what were they trying to take down? Were the other companies using their stuff maybe or using similar stuff? No, it was a t-shirt company. They just didn't want the other t-shirt companies to get any web traffic. So they DMCA'd them to like 600,000 a year.
Yeah.
And it worked. It worked really well.
But Google, at the end of all of that, Google was powerless under the law to do literally anything except this.
Because there's never going to be a punishment for fake DMCA. Because if there were, Disney would go out of business the next day. Yeah.
Even if they just it's like, oh, I'm going to affirm this under oath. If that was a $10,000 fine, Disney would stop doing that as prolifically as it does.
Well, if you're a major corporation, there's one playbook that always works well. If you have something that people hate, or maybe even you're a company that people hate, one of the best ways to dodge that in the days of short attention spans, just change the name.
Microsoft rebrands Bing Chat as CoPilot. Because when you think Bing Chat, you think a chat that is kind of half broken, maybe sort of a chat, but mostly doesn't really function as chat. Because that's how you think of Bing Search.
Yeah, Bing's just kind of garbage. Yeah.
The problem with Bing Chat is you think of Bing Search, which is terrible. It's the same, though.
I've also lumped in the start menu with Bing. So it's like, I don't want to engage with Bing when I click the start menu.
Full body revulsion when you pull up the start menu and you see that logo.
And I love the search preferences because it's like, I would like to, okay, I'm going to go in, I'm going to customize the search menu or start menu. And it's like, okay, well, do you want to see more web results or less web results? And it's like, I would like to see no web results. No, I'm sorry, that's not an option. Why is that not an option? Like,
because no one would choose it. If you give them that option, everybody's going to pick that one.
Yeah.
Well, Nvidia, they can't necessarily sell you a $40,000 GPU just as a consumer. but they still want you to get into AI. So they're laying the groundwork to get the normies into it.
Microsoft and Nvidia are making it easier to run AI models on Windows. Let me tell you, don't bother. Just go for the Windows subsystem for Linux. Microsoft, it turns out, doesn't like the fact that Nvidia has made it so easy to run mixed CUDA workloads on Linux and Windows simultaneously. But running CUDA workloads from WSL with a lightweight wrapper passed through to Windows is actually not an awful experience, and Microsoft can't have that.
And if you think to yourself, I like using Windows, but I would like to pay double for all of my hardware. Good news for you.
Windows is now an app for iPhones, iPads, Macs, and PCs. The only thing I could think about when we covered this is remember all the stories that we covered for the Apple App Store and how they were blocking very small apps that did pretty much the same thing. Remember how, like, we don't want you to have Netflix unless the content has been reviewed. We don't want you to have the Commodore 64 emulator because you could run arbitrary Commodore 64 code, which is maybe perhaps a little different. But we don't want you to be able to stream this thing unless you do the other thing. You should go through a web browser. Remember, Microsoft had this kind of a thing, and they instead had to do it through a web app instead of a native app. What changed?
So this is basically a remote desktop. It runs either your cloud instance of Windows or another Windows computer through the remote desktop. You just have to have this app to connect the two.
Apple deliberately hobbles the web browser performance. So being able to run remote desktop as a native application should perform a lot better, which is one benefit. But I wish that Apple wouldn't hobble performance of trusted web applications.
And Microsoft is well known for not really understanding why you wouldn't want to use all their products, right? I mean, it's right there. They put it in the start menu. You can't get away from it. And when people try to remove it, they're like, why would you ever want to stop using OneDrive? We just can't understand it. Please help us.
Microsoft is going to pull a OneDrive update that would quiz you before letting you quit. Why do you want to quit OneDrive? Do you not want to do this? I've noticed with the last Windows update, a couple of the machines around here have gotten really aggressive about OneDrive. It's like, we need to run backups on OneDrive. You should set this up. Let's tie this in. Oh my gosh, you're not using a Microsoft account in your Windows thing. We should set that up too. And I'm just like, no, stop.
Please
Exit.
let me. I just need to do my tasks. Stop.
Yeah, it's got a fun trick where you right click on it on the start menu and it gives you the quit menu, but it's just randomly on the screen somewhere. And it's like, are you trying to make me to where I can't actually quit
Dark
the
patterns.
application?
Well, this would actually disable the quit in the right click context menu until you went through. Now they have walked this back, but
It's just like the start menu. It's awful. It's worthless.
I'd say
But it makes the spreadsheets look amazing.
You know, Baldur's Gate works fine in Linux. I'm just saying.
I think there was a patch today that broke it. I saw people complaining about it. So,
No.
but it'll probably be fixed again.
the year of the Linux desktop.
No.
Well, it's not that, and it's never going to be, but it might be not this year, but the next one will be the year that we can come together as a people and finally not have the separation of the color of our text messages.
Apple announces that RCS support is coming to the iPhone next year. This is literally announced on the day of the European Union thing, where the European Union was saying, Apple, come on, you got to interoperate. And it was their last day to appeal, so they announced this.
You win, EU. Well played. And another unthinkable, however, there was an update to this. It might not quite be the freedom that we think it is. This is actually probably going to be more for enterprise, but maybe it's a baby step.
iOS 17.2 hints at Apple moving towards letting users sideload apps from outside the App Store. Probably for enterprise applications and not for the end user. Possibly for the European Union, because things are expected to go this way. Sideloading is a cyber criminal's
I
best
like
friend.
the gradient behind it. Something about that makes it more magical.
We need this to pop more.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be different if Apple hadn't had serious issues with cyber criminals lurking on their devices for years in the form of intelligence agencies and everybody else. It's just like, oh, you can't get to it, so it's really secure. No, that's not. If you had the tools to audit it, chances are more likely you would catch those kind of things.
Remember when Amazon was going to make their own replacement for like Unity?
Oh, Lumberyard.
Yeah.
You remember Lumberyard supposedly was murdering GPUs?
And then remember when they developed that first big game that they made for it and then no one wanted it? Then remember when they bought Twitch and that was going to revolutionize everything and they were going to like become part of the gaming community and everybody recognized that for what it is? Well, the trend continues.
Amazon is getting rid of its gaming content channel amid larger games layoffs. Company is cutting just over 180 jobs in its game division and refocusing the work it does on free games that it offers Amazon Prime subscribers. They're also getting rid of a lot of the Alexa team because it turns out large language models have completely changed how that works. But we got a story on that later.
And the Nothing phone, they had just had the new one come out, and I guess people are into it. And they had a big announcement, but boy, was this eclipsed by the one we just talked about before that last one.
Nothing is bringing iMessage to its Android phone. And it's amazing the infrastructure that they're using to do this is an army of virtual machines in the cloud, because Apple will let you run Apple virtual machines on Apple hardware. So when you sign up for the Nothing application, they run a little tiny virtual machine on real Apple hardware somewhere in the cloud for you to do iMessage. And then this becomes a front end to that. Because obviously we need to live in a world where Apple has created that level of human suffering so you can have a blue bubble.
But it's not...
My watch was like, you're experiencing a lot of stress right now. You should calm down.
It's not Apple. Or Nothing. It's Sunbird. There's an existing piece of software that does this. They point out that, like you said earlier with the other thing, this kind of thing had been on the Apple App Store for a while, and they killed every single one of them.
Yeah.
They will not tolerate it. So this is not new. It's just that you need an environment where it won't be destroyed. But now it doesn't matter.
Well, Apple hasn't done that yet. Nothing works today, whereas the other thing that's coming may work someday.
You got to get a different colored bubble today.
I desperately need that in my life.
And this has definitely been a rough week for software updates. This one is very embarrassing.
Rivian software update bricks its infotainment system, and the fix is not obvious. They issued an update for the update, which mostly fixed it, but still it remains broken for a very small percentage of people. They broke it so badly, you may have to take your vehicle into the shop, and they may have to swap some hardware.
So you actually have to drive with no telemetry, just blank screens. They said the backup camera still worked, and the climate controls, there's a remote climate control setting, but you can only set it before your trip. So whatever you start with in terms of air conditioning or heat, your entire trip is going to be that.
Excellent.
Well, that's a killer in fall when you got those like cold mornings and hot afternoons.
Fabulous.
So I guess you go with heat and then just use the windows to run your battery down. And Disney has decided that Disney Plus is the future, the only future.
Disney Plus pulls TV channels from Vietnam, and the government is concerned that piracy will run riot. Because, well, we can't get it. It's like, okay, this is Vietnam. They're just going to pirate it.
Yeah. So National Geographic in Vietnam doesn't exist anymore. Unless you're on Disney Plus, you can stream it there, but you can't watch it on regular Vietnamese TV.
I hate them so much.
One morning, it was just gone.
What an amazing future. This is also like automobile insurance, because as soon as driverless cars are a thing, you're not going to be able to afford to insure your car.
I poorly sorted this because it is software. This is the software section, but
it should have been with the other.
Should have been in the security section.
Well, this is the same story.
This is because, see, Optus said it was the upgrade.
Oh, show them. We'll just show them the headline.
We did the same. It was the exact story in the first episode.
Oh, you know what? You're right. Did I put both of them here?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. You know what? Just ignore that one. That never happened.
Just pretend that we were talking about something else.
And this, I would say this is sad, but actually I think there's a new thing. I think I saw a video. Yeah. So probably this is actually going to be good for him.
Zero punctuation star Yahtzee Croshaw quits after 16 years.
To which everyone who's ever watched his channel and then looked at zero punctuation was like, why didn't he do that sooner? Because who watched zero punctuation for anybody but Yahtzee?
Well, no, zero punctuation was his thing. You're thinking of The Escapist.
The Escape, yeah. Who watched The Escape? I didn't even know the name of it.
Exactly. He was the only thing that mattered there.
It really is, like, it is very funny. Like, that level of talent is impressive.
So they fired his supervisor, I guess. And there was some nebulous, like, you didn't meet your performance goals or whatever. And everybody who mattered at that place was like, yeah, we're quitting too. So it's probably just done. He's got a new thing that you can check out. which is the same. I mean, why would you break that formula?
The art style is like just in a different color. Like it's the same thing. I watched one of his reviews the other day.
Well, we never stop hearing about Roblox, and not only how much of a juggernaut it is, but also how awful it is and how dangerous it is.
Roblox faces class action suit from parents about bad things in terms of content and grooming that may be going on. Parents who would never let their kids use TikTok don't think twice about letting them on Roblox. But it turns out there's a huge spectrum of content available on different servers and in different places on Roblox.
I'm not a parent, so like I don't really know, but like I would think you would watch your kids' traffic no matter where they're going or what they're doing.
No.
At least when they're young.
Absolutely not. No. On average, I would say they're completely... Because once, you get numb to it, right?
I guess, yeah.
You don't worry about it anymore. It's like, I can't deal with that 24/7. I just need some me time. Here's some Robux. Is that what they call it?
Yeah, Robux.
Robux. What blew my mind about this is they interviewed some of the class action people, and they're like, how much do you spend on Roblox a year? $4,000?
That seems like a first world problem, 1%er kind of thing.
4,000.
Is that an average, or is that like the whales?
Just the ones they interviewed, so I don't know. They didn't have like statistics or anything.
Were they in like a gated community when they talked to these kids? Like,
I don't know, but that was one of the things they were most upset about. It's like, I spend a lot of money just to think that I have a special place where my child won't be exposed to this kind of thing. They also pointed out that in one case, a kid started talking to who they thought was another 12-year-old, and then it ended up being somebody who wasn't even in America, who was definitely not a 12-year-old. And there was some serious grooming, and they had moved them to an outside email address, and they had all those records then. So, pretty crazy.
How did they catch? It was the parents again? Like, I feel like my mom would have known pretty quickly because she was always checking like my history and stuff when I was a kid.
They figured it out, but it was a lot easier to do that kind of thing back in those days. Now you got to think about how many different social medias that you'd have to keep up with,
and devices, and they all have their own device. We had a singular PC, and it was in the dining room. So like every time my mom got up from the couch, she would walk by and like look at what I was doing.
Well, the Tesla has certainly upended the car model, but we are still trapped in this old world of dealerships and their whole like adding fees that we really don't need. Unfortunately, Amazon is not going to revolutionize in the same way. They're keeping the dealerships.
Amazon will allow auto dealers to sell cars on its site, starting with Hyundai. This is another one of those. We were talking about the FTC. It's like, oh, the companies charge different prices for different people. Yes, if we could end that, starting with car dealerships, that would be amazing.
And more importantly, the arbitration agreements.
Yeah.
Which is why the Hyundai and Kia owners can't do anything about it, because they signed a piece of paper that said, we'll never sue you.
Even though we have a dangerously insecure vehicle anti-theft system. The anti-theft system is more like here, thieves, I'm over here. Come and steal me.
Sort of semi-related. On Amazon, you know how like there's always like those little house kits and stuff. Has anyone actually ever ordered one of those?
I mean, like where you can build it, it's like just buy the lumber and follow our...
Yeah, because like it's weird to me to imagine buying a car on Amazon, but people apparently buy those little houses and stuff.
We should do that. Level 1 investigates.
Those are like provide your own lumber though, right? You just get the other hardware.
I don't know, because they're usually expensive. At least some of the ones I've seen.
Sometimes they'll ship you the lumber. Sometimes it's just for 2x4s. You get those at your local, but everything else is shipped.
Has anybody out there ever used an Amazon structure?
I'd be interested to know.
Lowe's moves a lot of those little
the sheds.
Sheds, yeah, like a lot of them.
I've been looking at greenhouses. They're also a little pricey, so I haven't pulled the trigger on one, but there's a lot of little places that sell them around here.
Well, artificial intelligence is certainly going to change the upcoming election. That's no question. But how much can we tolerate in terms of just not being able to believe what we see? When you look at what a politician says, I mean, it's probably a lie, right? But did they want it to be that lie? Or did they not even approve of it?
Meta to require political ads reveal AI-altered images.
How do you enforce that?
Not well. Meta has actually had a lot of rules around political ads in the past. And I can think of a lot of stories that we've covered where those controls were not very effective.
Maybe by design.
Remember the Cambridge Analytica thing where in the fine print it was like, you're not going to do the Cambridge Analytica business model? And Cambridge Analytica was like, hee, okay, click.
Look, the China checkbox. Sure.
Yeah.
No problem.
That didn't work out in the end.
Well, I feel sorry for anyone who doesn't get their news from the Level 1 links with friends, even though it's not news. But apparently most of you are in that basket, and more, you're going to maybe the worst place.
The Pew Research Center says more Americans are getting news on TikTok, bucking the trend as seen on most other social media sites.
Didn't we cover this last week, or is this new? I could have sworn we covered this last week.
I don't remember doing it last week. We may have.
Those of you who watch this channel to get your news.
Is there a date? November 15th. So it wasn't this story last week.
Oh, I thought we covered a similar one.
And why are our teens so susceptible to the dangers of TikTok? Why are they addicted to it? Why does it fuel all of their behavior all of a sudden? What is it about them or the algorithm that does it?
Social media gets teens hooked while feeding aggression and impulsivity, and researchers think they know why.
Basically, that constant drip of endorphins and reward makes you only able to consume a world that works like that. So when things start to take longer or whatever, you go to your phone every 5 seconds.
That seems like that's a recipe for making society collapse. Is this the great filter?
That's what we were talking about YouTube Shorts, where it's like you have to avoid that area of the site because it's like it is kind of hypnotic to do that. I'm like, I can't.
You got to try to discipline yourself away from all that stuff. But the kids growing up with it,
yeah, they don't have that.
they just They don't know what to do.
That self-control because they're young.
Now, the one thing about TikTok is that it's definitely not in the interest of the American people, or I guess the American government, you could say. And interestingly, after you tumble over a few times, some reality can get mixed into it. And everybody's like, no, we don't ever think about that. Never go into those parts of your brain. Those must always be turned off.
The Newsweek headline is Bin Laden's letter to the U.S. stuns young Americans. And they say, quote unquote, he was right. So this is the controversy. Newsweek has a write-up on the controversy last week or this week where, it was published by, what was it, The Guardian? So I thought it was a British paper.
Yeah, I think it was The Guardian, but it was back in the day.
Yeah.
This was still up.
He wrote it in, what was it, like 2002? Like right after?
Right after,
yeah.
yeah.
It's like, this is why this happened. And so people are reading it and saying, oh, okay, I get it. It's just, oh my God.
But now The Guardian has taken it down. That was not valid news anymore.
I'm sure there's a copy of it somewhere.
Of course, people reposted it. But it has to do with the Gaza situation where the things that he was saying in that letter, people are reading it and they're like, wait a minute, this sounds familiar. Are we the baddies? And I would say this, we'll talk about it in the entertainment section, but I'm so excited when Disney fails.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That new Marvel movie has been an absolute disaster. And
There's just too many superhero movies and shows and
there's a lot of reasons that it all sucks. And this is the kind of people who came up with that movie came up with this.
Disney Pinnacle is preparing to be the next big NFT failure. Collectible digital tokens have crashed hard, but that's not going to stop Disney. Listen, people will buy anything.
Maybe not.
It's weird that they don't do something like customize your Disney Plus account. So you could have a screensaver or a profile picture. And then you had to pay money. Yeah.
Yeah, but nobody else sees your profile.
Maybe you could become a curator and make it more social. The Disneyverse. I'm sure someone's already working on that. That's probably been engineered in a lab somewhere.
The best thing about this article is if you go and read about all the hot trends. Remember the cats, the Ethereum cats?
There's been so many. I remember the apes.
But they compare the numbers that were sold during the hot time and now. And I think there was 3 in the last 6 months. Or there's a forum somewhere. There's only been 3 posts because it's over.
Dead.
There was one outrage post that was circulating on the internet because someone apparently paid $300,000 for a picture of an Ethereum rock. And it was like, no, NFTs are over. Didn't you get the memo? Why did you pay $300,000 for a rock?
We're all on AI now. Come on.
So yeah, I wouldn't invest too much in the Marvel tokens. You might not get a good return on that.
What's the next big trend in entertainment, do you think? So superheroes for a long time. Are we going back to Westerns?
I would love to see some cowboy stuff.
Oh, space western would be pretty cool.
The problem with Westerns is you get into the identity politics with the Native American stuff.
Well, that could be interesting. You could do a more modern spin on that.
Yeah, but then you have to look at our history and be like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm
We shouldn't have done that. Maybe that was that mean. Are we the baddies?
kind of surprised that the Dune movies haven't spawned. Like, that would be a low IP cost universe to acquire, like somebody like Amazon or whatever, to start building interesting shows.
That's being developed.
Oh, it is?
It is, yeah. They were talking about doing shows because I think the director was going to do 2 or 3 movies, and then there was talk of doing shows.
The Dune, like the writing there is so dense. I need to go back and reread it, but it's so dense. But there was like all the political intrigue, and the character is doing this, thinking this, and the other character thinks this character is doing this because of this, but it's actually this other reason. And there was just like 7 layers of indirection there, and it was very interesting because I think it was very true to life. I think it's a really interesting universe for that kind of thing, and probably low cost.
but it's also a little too adult for Disney, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why like Amazon or Netflix or somebody to pick that up now that we got the movies, and it's like, oh, there's this other stuff going on in the universe, or 300 years after the events of Dune. There's more Dune books.
Jessica Atreides was basically a concubine.
Yeah.
Did they cover that in the movie?
No.
Yeah, they do.
Well.
No, because he says I should have married you.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, you should have.
But it was very much like, I have to keep my political options open, and she's like, okay.
Yeah.
But
I mean, to be fair, in the movie they cut quite a bit, I think, from what I understood.
Well,
like, because there was just so much stuff they had to pack in.
it wasn't, maybe I'm misremembering from the movie or the book, but like she had her own MO as well. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm the concubine of a political leader here. It was also, I'm trying to produce the super baby.
She was a plant from the
Yeah.
Bene Gesserit.
Yeah. So
But that's what makes it so good. It was all the
yeah.
layers.
I mean, her relationship with the Bene Gesserit is in there, but yeah, it's not as nuanced, I think, as
Yeah.
probably as it is in the book.
Yeah. And because
Read the book.
That's always, that is always at the end of the day.
But good Lord, the information density in those books is like, it's very high.
It's tough for the TikTok generation.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for our Wednesday episode. We'll be coming back on Friday.
Bye. Happy Thanksgiving to the U.S.